Our story properly begins during the autumn of 1926. H.P. Lovecraft had just left New York City after a rocky 2-year stay that had left him permanently embittered. He had arrived in 1924 to marry Sonia Green, and the two lived together in her apartment in Brooklyn. While living in the city, Lovecraft failed to find work and sank into depression. He hated the city, he hated its people, and he hated that it was unkind to him. He began to write nasty stories about the unkempt foreigners who he believed were polluting America, and he began to long to go home. By 1926, Lovecraft had had enough of New York, cursed the city, and packed up for good. He moved back to his beloved hometown of Providence, Rhode Island, and took up residence with his aunt in a Victorian duplex. That's from a very interesting book called The Cult of Alien Gods, H.P. Lovecraft and the Extraterrestrial Pop Culture by Jason Colavito, and this is a Prometheus Books book. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Stench of Truth. In light of the fact that yesterday was tax day, perhaps we should make a few comments about taxes. And maybe we should also try to focus on some very important distinguishing characteristics about taxes within this country, and realize that the greatest share of burden for taxes, federal taxes, state taxes, everything else is borne by individuals, and that the individuals and families who bear the brunt of taxation in this country are the only ones who are being targeted for any new taxes. Now, bear this in mind when thinking about Ben Bernanke's recent commentary, where he says that because of the untenable nature of our debt, there are only several possibilities open to the United States as far as dealing with it. One is to raise taxes. Number two is to, I don't remember his exact words, but basically what it amounted to was to reduce so-called, quote-unquote, entitlement programs. And number three was some combination of those two. Now, further on the lines of taxation, one must realize that the people who are in charge of this administration and the people who are in charge of the financial side of the U.S. administration are all Wall Street backed. In fact, almost all of them come from Goldman Sachs. And Goldman Sachs right now stands at the pinnacle of financial power, not only in Wall Street, the United States, and the U.S. administration, but also in the world at large. They're one of the largest financial powerhouses at this time. And it should come as no surprise that Goldman Sachs pays virtually nothing in federal taxes. And they're by no means an exception. Certainly, they gain the largesse of their increased presence within the government, but there are many other companies, corporations, banks, financial institutions, which pay next to nothing in taxes. Nothing. And yet, these institutions have gained immeasurably by being bailed out by our tax money, not even their own, but ours, the money that we have paid in. The Treasury has paid to them to bail them out of the mess that they created, and that the Federal Reserve also promulgated and lengthened and made worse by the underlying philosophy of supporting that risky business they were engaged in, with the unsaid promise of as much money as they could possibly handle. So what new taxes would Bernanke have us impose? Well, one thing that they're talking about is a value-added tax, which is something similar to a national sales tax, which is being used in Great Britain, I believe, and may also be in the European Union, but certainly is being talked about as being added there. And yet, not a hint, not even the slightest trace of going after the money where it resides. That is by forcing companies, financial institutions, to pay the fucking taxes that they owe, that they are obligated to pay as part of the system that we have in place. So make Goldman Sachs pay the corporate tax rate instead of letting them off the hook where they don't pay anything at all. If you're not outraged by this, every April 15th, when you see the totality of the taxes that you have to pay to the federal government, if you're not outraged by the fact that your money that you paid into that system was being used and given to financial institutions to engage in deliberately risky practices, to bail them out of their risky behavior with your dime, and they pay virtually nothing into it, then nothing will outrage you. So, what would the VAT tax mean? Well, a tax on virtually everything that you buy, a value-added tax. Everything that you buy will have a little bit more added on to it. And who's this going to affect? But you and me, regular everyday people. It's certainly not going to affect corporations. It's not going to affect businesses. It's not going to affect the rich in any tangible fashion. Why aren't we talking about taxing Wall Street? You know, we all have sales taxes. We all pay sales tax in every state or in some fashion, practically everywhere. And some of those, I know I pay 11% where I live. How would it be for Wall Street if they had to pay 11% taxes on top of every fucking transaction that they have? And all I'm asking for is that every transaction be taxed at 1%. I think it's, well, it's not even fair, but it's certainly a start for them to contribute something instead of just taking. And all you have here is you have the Congress and the presidency in lockstep, in the same agenda. And that is to do absolutely nothing on the corporate side of things, but to attack the people. And that brings us to the second point. And that is the so-called entitlement programs. And what are they talking about here? Social Security, Medicare, welfare, Medicaid, all of these things that are portrayed by the right as things that are given to you for free, when that could not be further from the fucking truth. Do you not pay Social Security taxes? Do you not pay Medicare taxes in your paycheck every week or 2 weeks or however often you're paid? Do you not pay federal taxes? Do you not pay state taxes? How is this any different than a fucking investment? You pay into Social Security by the money that you earn. How is it a giveaway? And that's the way it's portrayed. How is it a giveaway when you invest in this expecting a return on your fucking investment? And that's what they want to attack. They want to attack everything that comes to the people. Take more from the people. And do absolutely nothing to the corporations who are just giant leeches on the back of our system. And on our backs as people. And that should cause you great concern. And that should cause great outrage. And I hope that you will take some effort to contact your legislators and the president and to tell them that you're outraged, that you have to pay into everything, and yet the only answer the federal government, Congress want to give is that they want to take away what you put into, and they want to tax you more on top of it, while corporations skate. This is the travesty of the fascism that rules in this country today. And it should make you as mad as it makes me. Thank you. Good night.